Hello folks and welcome to Paddock Pass, your pre-race edition for the 21st and final Grand Prix of 2018 here in Abu Dhabi. Told my mates I was off to Yas Island. Where the fox at, they said. And so I did. Here's Lewis Hamilton. Driver's title done, team title done. Can this weekend be a really enjoyable one for everybody with the pressure off?
Honestly, I don't think so, because it's still a Grand Prix, so it's not like we're going to arrive on a theme park kind of weekend. It's still a hard weekend where we really still have a lot to learn, still things that we can go, because naturally preparation for next year as well. So I think there's a lot that can go into this weekend, a lot that can be taken from it. So I think we have to approach it exactly the same, unfortunately. But it's only it's only a couple more days.
That's it. Are you tired physically and mentally after this year? Because it's been a long season.
Yes. No, I would be lying if I said that I wasn't. I think it's really difficult for people naturally watching to fully understand it. But I'm sure you, the media, everyone standing here, have been standing in this pen all year long and traveling to all these different locations and time away from family and all these different things. You know, I know people would cut their right arm off to have the opportunity to do it, but it doesn't deter from the fact that it is a hard slog. And yeah, I'm super excited. I can't even. I'm counting the days till I can go away and put my feet up.
Getting those emails with the snow reports, haven't you?
I have. How did you know that? I really have. I've been getting the. I have a group of friends, and we have a group chat. There's like 15 of us or whatever in it, and they've been sending the snow reports, pictures of snow, because some of them are already in the snow zones, and we're already picking out kit, we're already picking out plans and things that we're talking about doing. So that's difficult for me because we're in this hot climate, and I'm, excited to be in the snow, in the cold, which is odd.
Good to see Lewis already, I think, slightly in holiday mode, thinking more about snow. Down to Ferrari then, and a driver entering his final weekend for the Scuderia. Kimi Räikkönen is and remains, and this is an interesting statistic coming into this race, not only the team's last world champion, but also the team's last pole sitter and race winner. Here he is, I guess looking back a little bit on his legacy at the team and what it means to him. Some rare introspection from the man who says so little. Last race with Ferrari, is there any sadness to be leaving after so many happy memories, or just excitement for the future?
I think it's more excitement. I don't see why we should be sad about it. And we had 2 times a good run, and we won the championship together. Me personally, the drivers' championship, we won 2 construction championships. So I don't. We should be sad about it. Life goes on, and we stay friends. And I think I think it's going to work out absolutely fine.
In a lot of sports, I think football players play for a team for a long time. They come to represent that team, and the team starts to represent them as well. What do you think Ferrari has changed about you, and what do you think you've changed about Ferrari?
I don't know. I mean, I think every year is different on teams. It doesn't matter if people stay there, exactly the same people. They're always gonna try to involve and do things differently or better. And we get to know each other. And I think if you look where I came to Ferrari, first time it's a lot different than it's when I came the second time. And then it's where we started in 2014, where we're now, it's a hell of a step forward, and it's definitely going in the right direction for sure. Things needs to be still improved, but I think it's the same with everything. It's never, the work never ends, and you always try to do better.
How proud are you that when the history of this sport and Ferrari is looked upon, your name will be linked as a champion with this team?
Well, obviously, I think if you can choose to win somewhere, you probably take a Ferrari, and I'm glad that I managed to do it. There's not that many people in the end that's been able to do it. Obviously, Michael did the most of it, so it's coming after him. It's great to be what we achieved. Obviously, I always want to do more, but one is better than nothing. So.
Now, of course, it was the talking point in Brazil, and it's still the talking point here in Abu Dhabi, and that's why I guess they've put Red Bull next to Force India, just as they've put Max Verstappen and Esteban Ocon in the press conference next to each other and in the TV pen next to each other. Of course, it was the moment that changed everything in the Brazilian Grand Prix. 2 into 1 at turn 2. Should Esteban Ocon have made the move on Max Verstappen? Should Max Verstappen have given more room? Obviously, Ocon got the 10-second penalty in the race, and the debate continued long afterwards and continues here. Let's talk to both of them about how they saw that incident, and coming here, whether they've sort of kissed and made up. Nah, they haven't. They say you can't go back, but if you could, would you give an extra metre into the corner to save the win?
Well, it's always easy to say afterwards, but I didn't expect racing a back marker, so and especially not taking you out. So in hindsight, no, I wouldn't have done anything different. I think it was him who had to change something. But I'll tell you like this: I think if Lewis was leading the race, he wouldn't have taken that risk.
Okay.
So that explains already a lot.
So, because he's already said that there was no thought process in that, but do you think he deliberately took you out?
Well, listen, I mean, I just overtook Lewis. You are in the lead of the race. It's all about tire management this year, so I back out of it because we had a lot of pace in our cars. So for me, it was just cruising to the victory basically. And somebody comes out of the pit lane, has new tires, but the Force India in general is like a second and a half slower than me. But then he knows that as soon as he gets by, within 2 laps, his tires are again off, and you have to let me by again. So at the end of the whole process of trying to get by, using your tires a bit more than you should have done, and then letting me by again, it's just compromising his race as well. So that's the part I don't understand about it.
Ultimately, it didn't matter though, did it? You could have let him by, you would have got past 2 laps later, and it doesn't matter.
It didn't matter for him to get by, because I'm not racing him. He's a back marker, and he's racing me, and then he crashes into me.
It's obviously you weren't racing for position, and I think overall that's the position that everyone has to look at.
Well, if you would be racing for first or second, I can understand the crash we had. But I mean, I'm racing a back marker, which you shouldn't say racing, because I am not racing him. I'm just doing my race, and he's trying to get by in the most risky way possible. First of all, going around the outside, then diving up into turn 2. And like I said, if it would be Lewis, he wouldn't have done that anyway.
Do you have any regret on fighting for that position, looking back, getting the penalty and all of the furore that it created?
Well, to be involved with something with the leader, it's not something you want. Definitely, it's if I could come back on the incident, I would like it not to happen. But I'm sorry for Max. It was his race to win, and he was going to do it great, and he was doing a great race. But on the other hand, I was also fighting for my race. I was stuck behind him for a couple laps. I had to get close to this P10 in case there's a penalty or something to get in the points, and the same opinion was from my team. So we had to go for it, and there was no other way to do anything different.
I've got to ask you about the notion of racing room on a track. It seems there's a trend, shall we say, amongst the newer generation of drivers to play a game of chicken. To say a game of chicken is basically it's me or you. Okay. I've committed to my line, so either you back out or we're going to crash.
Okay.
And it could be said that both of you maybe took that position in Brazil. You had your nose in, he took his line. You both said to the other, pull out or we're going to crash. Neither one of you did, therefore the crash. Do you have to rethink the notion of racing room to give each other space?
I think we always have to give each other space, really. And if you don't, you have a touch and you have damaged car, and that's always going to happen. So I'm not going to comment exactly on what happened, but I'm not a driver who normally crashed. I got this record for 27 races in a row, more than 40 in single-seater. So I like to finish races, and I hate being on the side and off the track. So this is definitely not my style.
I think it was 52 in a row in the end, wasn't it?
There you go.
It was 52. Interesting stuff then. I think from both of them, Max essentially doubling down on his apportioning of the blame at Esteban Ocon's door, and you can see where he's coming from. He wasn't racing Ocon for the win, but I think the point to Esteban, and it's a point that I wrote about earlier in the week, it's about racing room, and these guys, certainly of a certain generation, they're playing of chicken with one another, not giving each other that racing room. Let's compare, for example, Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen. would Ricciardo have closed the door like that on Ocon? I think arguably you could say with that little bit more experience, and as Lewis said in the ante-room after the race before the podium, you had more to lose. Just give that extra metre, you'd have the race win. Anyway, talking about racing experience, one of the stories really of the season and of the weekend, one of the great sporting comebacks of all time, Robert Kubica, however you want to pronounce it, will be a Formula One driver again, race driver in 2019. It is, people say, oh, even Hollywood can't write that. Someone wrote the Emoji Movie, so Hollywood could write anything. But it's the most amazing story, and I think they say Hollywood couldn't write it because it would seem so fantastical and so unbelievable that nobody would think that it would be possible. And yet here is this guy who was almost killed in a rally accident, lost the use of his arm. It's still, when you see Robert and you see his arm, and it is still in a terrible state. But here is this guy who has fought back to regain the career that was taken from him in that awful accident at the start of 2011. One of the most likeable guys in the paddock, one of the most respected and feared, and a guy that Alonso and Hamilton looked up to and said, this is the guy, he's the one. Back in Formula One. It's such an amazing story. We're going to speak to Robert and also to Claire Williams about what this means, why they've chosen him, and what his hopes are for a return which even a couple of years ago was a flight of fancy. Congratulations. It's been a huge amount of work to get to this point, but is it fair to say that this is where the real work starts?
Exactly, yeah. And I'm happy to say it. I was more scared of the work I was doing for the last 8 years than what is coming, because of course with maximum respect and all knowledge, I know being in Formula One grid is not easy job, and racing against the best drivers is very demanding and very challenging. But on the other hand, I know what it took me to get here, and I know what it takes to be one of top drivers in Formula One. So now the question is to work, to give me a bit of time, and to focus on what is the part which I enjoy more, is being a race driver.
The driver that you were and the driver that you are, how different are they in positive and negative?
Well, it's a difficult question to ask. I have been racing Formula One on high level, or top level, I would say. And now I'm starting racing back in Formula One, so we will need to give time to get this answer. But definitely experience will help from one side, because I know what it takes, but from the other side I'm also starting kind of from zero. But everybody is starting new season with things to get know better. The Pirelli is changing the tires, the teams are building up new cars, there is new regulations, so a lot of I think most of the drivers are excited and looking forward to discover a new package, and so I'm looking from I have all positive things is that whatever I think is only about technical stuff, and I'm confident this is how it should be. And honestly, I'm not thinking about 8 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm not thinking. I'm just thinking what it is now, what will be in the future, and I hope experience of 10 years ago will help me in some occasions. But I know I have to rely on current situation and learn as much as I can.
Have you set yourself any goals for next year yet?
Well, the goal is clear for me. Is try to help the team together with George and with all team to realistically, step by step, improve things and try to bring Williams higher up. There will be no miracle. I don't think miracles happens in Formula One. But with hard work, with dedication, with the time, everything can happen. So I think the realistic goal from my side, and this is what I'm looking forward, and I'm actually, more I talk about it, I'm more pumped up, is to help the team and to supply the best Robert Kubica which I can supply to the team.
It's an amazing story seeing Robert come back. How much of the decision was business? How much of it was sporting? How much of it was emotional?
For me, it was purely sporting. I said that going into this year, I needed to take some emotion out of my decision making. We really need next year. This for us, it's going to be a new chapter in our history, and I wanted a fresh start. And I wanted to make sure that out of the pool of talent that we had, we were just purely selecting on talent. So, as everybody knows, we went through quite a considerable evaluation process, and Robert came out on top for that. And I think in George and Robert, we have a really strong driver lineup for next year.
This is a team whose foundation was built on really gutsy drivers. How does Robert fit in with the Williams team and with sort of your reputation of the drivers that you've had over so many decades?
I think Robert's history in Formula One prior to his injury speaks for itself. He was leading the championship in 2008 at one point and won a race for BMW Sauber back in those days, and was hotly tipped to be a star of the future prior to his accident. So for me, seeing what he's managed to achieve in the journey back to Formula One is absolutely synonymous with the DNA that we have at Williams. His fighting spirit is, tantamount for me to Frank's. And that's extraordinary to see. And if he applies that in any small measure next year, I know that he's going to do a great job for the team.
You just mentioned your father, a man who defies the odds daily. What does he think about Robert's appointment?
Frank is thrilled. I think Frank's very excited about both our drivers for next year.
And so to Renault, one race left for Carlos Sainz with the French/English team before he moves to McLaren, where he will still have the Renault engine in the back of the car. Renault have today announced that they will be releasing him early so he can test next week with the team. Let's talk to Carlos and see how he is looking towards his last race with the team, at which he's had so much personal growth and development over the past couple of seasons.
No, I'm not sad. I'm not nostalgic or any melancholic or anything like that. No, I'm actually haven't gone through that phase yet. Probably on Sunday after the race, when it's time to say goodbye to the mechanics and the engineers, will be a bit more difficult. But until then, time to push flat out and time to enjoy the weekend.
What have you learned over your time here that you can take with you to McLaren?
A lot of things. Mainly how a big team like Renault works and the facilities they have to bring things that you need to make the car a bit more suited to you. I really enjoyed how this year we evolved as a team, but also as a whole. Having to make the car a bit more better for my driving style and everything. How quickly a team reacted and gave me exactly what I needed. So that's a good point that I take, for example.
Are you disappointed to be leaving at a point at which the team is starting to mature? It's like you've baked the cake, but you're not going to get to eat it.
No, not too disappointed about that, because I know I'm going to another team that is also baking the cake, and I'm going to be part of that, and that motivates me. But I wish the best of luck to Renault. I think they deserve to go back to the top one day, although we all have a lot of work to do, not only Renault but McLaren. If we want to catch one day Mercedes and Ferrari or even Red Bull, it's still a long way.
Last race also for Pierre Gasly at Toro Rosso. It's a season that flattered to deceive for Pierre and for Toro Rosso. On occasion, the car was fantastic. For the majority of the year, it's been a hard slog, but it's a hard slog which may pay off for Pierre next year as those Honda engines go to Red Bull Racing, and he, with his vast wealth of experience with that power unit provider, may pay dividends. But how much has he evolved through his first full season in Formula One? How different is the man today than the one that turned up for his, not first Grand Prix, but first full season Grand Prix in Australia? God, how many months ago? March. It's flown by, hasn't it?
Well, in Melbourne, I think was, I came there all excited. I wanted to do the pole position on my first qualifying and ended up doing a mistake for my first quali. And yeah, I've learned that in Formula One, in the last few years, every weekend I could fight for pole position, wins, championship, and then you come in Formula One and you need to accept that some weekends you have the performance to fight at the top, some others more at the back, but it doesn't change your approach. You always need to give the best of yourself and make sure you make the best out of your package. And I think now I'm more objective about the final results and more about the performance I deliver, where at the beginning of the season I was more looking at the final result without so much perspective. So no, I think I've learned a lot from all these kind of situations. Also as a driver, I feel much more comfortable in the team, in the car, with the things I want from the car and from my team and crew around me. So yeah, I feel more complete, but I think I've got still so many things to learn, and the experience I'm going to take in the next few years will be clearly super useful.
Now, Haas still in the fight for fourth in the Constructors' Championship. It's going to take quite a massive race from them here. Nothing's impossible. They might spring a couple of podiums, you never know, and take that fourth place from Renault. It's unlikely. But the job they've done this season and the competitiveness they've shown has been astonishing. Also astonishing has been the turnaround in fortunes for Romain Grosjean. Vocally questioned over his future participation in the sport at mid-season. He has, perhaps more than any other driver in this paddock, had to really look inwards and find that strength of character to evolve, to change, to get back to his best. And I think he is probably at one of his best places in Formula One now. Let's talk to him about what's been an incredible year for him, for the team, of such growth and achievement.
It's gone fast, you know. It feels like we were in Melbourne yesterday. Every year, same thing. When you start the season, you see 21 races, you think, oh my God, this is going to be a long one. And then you get to race 21 and you think, oh, why is it gone? I mean, everyone is pretty tired, but I could keep going, you know. I enjoy racing at the minute, especially after that first part of the season that was difficult, bouncing back and coming back to where I wanted to be, and being able to fight with a good car, great atmosphere in the team, just makes you that you enjoy going. So last one, but already looking forward to 2019.
It seems a long time ago that there were vocal questions about whether you'd still be in Formula One next year. When you look back at that first part of the season, how different do you see the driver that was attending races back then? And what did you have to change about yourself?
Well, it's the same driver. It's just different. There was personal issues that I needed sorted, understand them and sort them out. And the week before the German Grand Prix, I called my partner, manager, Martin, and I say, Martin, I'm back, you'll see. And I was back. I just felt, you know, I knew that at that point, I knew that I had found everything I needed to find and resolve everything I needed to resolve, and I was back to where I wanted to be. So I'm very proud of the way I bounced back from those difficult times. Not so proud of the way I put myself into those tough times. But life is not always flat, you know, it's up and downs, and I think now the key is not to get into that situation again and just keep the form that I've been having recently.
You've been here since day one. How proud are you of what this team's been able to do this season and how close you guys are to fourth in the Constructors' Championship, which is astonishing by all accounts?
It is an incredible performance from the whole team, you know, on a third season in Formula One, fighting for fourth until the last race of the season. I mean, if anyone had told us in winter testing that we would finish fifth in the constructor, everyone would have signed directly, you know. So I think we're very proud of that, very proud of the team, seeing it from since day one, seeing how it's growing, and seeing that every year there's things that get better and are done in a good way. Just gives us a lot of faith in the future, and there's so much more room to improve our performance that is just great to go year after year.
New garage entrance down at McLaren for the last race of the season. Hardly seems worth it. Although maybe it's for next year. Hey Zach, you got a new garage door.
We do have.
Is that for one race only?
It's for the end of the season.
That sounds like a very intelligent use of money, Zach.
Yeah, it is flash, isn't it?
It's nice. We like it. Is that for Fernando? Just to sort of.
We're trying to do as many things to give Fernando a good going away present as we can.
Nice.
Fancy
cool.
doors and all.
Fancy doors, fancy livery, fancy lid.
Yeah, it all looks pretty cool.
Fancy car. It's going to be quick. Thanks, Zach. Let's talk to Fernando. Last Grand Prix for him in Formula One, and I think they're probably half the reason that he's off. Just been a really torrid year again for him and for the team. One I'm sure they can't wait to move on from. Fernando, though, a two-time world champion who had it all at his feet, could have achieved so much, could have rewritten the record books. It was not to be. He leaves Formula One as a two-time world champion, and perhaps with questions of what more he might have achieved had the dice just rolled a different way. Is this farewell, or is it just a break?
Right now, I think I take this race like the last one. You know, honestly, it's difficult to think in the future and to imagine myself coming back. But at the same time, you know, I cannot close the door completely, because I never found myself not racing in F1 for now so many years that I don't know how it's gonna
is going to be and how it will feel, you know, being at home and watching the television. So if that is a disaster, you know, I may come back. You know, if that is impossible to live without Formula One, I may come back.
You're very welcome to come and help us do the TV if you want. Offer's always there.
I heard it's a good salary.
It's not as good as yours.
I don't know. I saw you know, new watch, new car, you know, new clothing.
Thanks.
Okay. Any more questions?
What are you going to miss the most? Or has it got to a point where actually you're so desperate for a break from this that you're not going to miss all that much?
No, definitely I will miss a lot of things. I will miss the people here. You share half of your life with the same people, more or less. The most talented engineers in the business, the most talented designers, you guys, media, you know, a lot of people that you share all your life. So I think that will be the thing that I miss most. Second will be the cars. I think the Formula One cars are unique, you know, in motorsport. They are amazing to drive. Despite the positions you feel always an amazing lap when you complete the lap. And I think that kind of technology and that kind of sophistication I will miss driving any other series.
And we finished this week down at Sauber with arguably driver of the season. Is that fair? Is that unfair to Hamilton as champion? No, I don't think it is. I think he has been one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive driver of the year. We talk, of course, about Charles Leclerc. 1 year in Formula One, he has made such an impression, done such a phenomenal job. He is, of course, a Ferrari driver for 2019, but for one more weekend, he is a Sauber driver. What a lot they've achieved from that first race weekend, staring at the back row of the grid, to now being consistent point scorers and Q3 qualifiers. What a year they've had. What a driver he is.
Well, it has been a great journey. I mean, Sauber has helped me so much to grow, and the team itself has grown so much overall. Quite crazy to think that at the beginning of the year we were fighting to not be last and second to last, and now we are actually fighting quite regularly for Q3. So yeah, extremely happy about this first season, and really looking forward to end this season on a high here in Abu Dhabi.
How much have you changed as a driver and as a person this year?
Well, as a person, I don't think much. As a driver, definitely a lot. I mean, in terms of meetings with so many people at the beginning, it can be quite intimidating to speak to so many people. And it's a different approach. You can go a lot more in details here because there are a lot more people working for the car and for the performance of the car. So it's yeah, but I've grown in every sense as a driver.
1 weekend left. What are the objectives this weekend? Is it just to have fun, enjoy yourself, see what you can get out of it, or is points like the minimum expectation?
I will push at the maximum to get the best result possible, that's for sure. And something that we definitely did not expect, but we are actually closer than we thought to Force India. So this can be a quite good motivation. Obviously, realistically, it's going to be extremely difficult, but we'll go for it.
So that's your lot from Paddock Pahas here at Yas Marina. See you next time.